Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on the last day of 2021. Let's wind up this year for you with the headlines at this hour. 18% of tested COVID samples in India were of the new variant Omicron. 50% of Delhi samples report Omicron. All samples from metro cities that have tested positive for COVID are being sent for genome sequencing. So is the third wave upon us? The data seems to suggest so. Weekly cases are up 2, 3, 4 times in many states. India's R factor is at 1.22, above the key 1 mark. Delhi has recorded 9 COVID deaths this month, the highest in the last 4 months, as the national capital continues to see a worrying surge in cases. While oblivious to the rising COVID cases, politicians go ahead with their rallies in poll-bound states. The Home Minister Amit Shah holds a roadshow in Bareilly, Uttar Pradesh. AAP's Arvind Kejriwal holds a victory march in Punjab's Patiala. People are packed like sardines with no COVID regulations in sight. Eerie images of an empty Juhu beach on New Year's Eve, as all public spaces are closed off to Mumbaikars between 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. till January 15th. Given the massive spike in coronavirus cases, the police can be seen pleading with the public to go back home. What happened to the government's claim that the entire eligible population of India would be vaccinated against COVID-19 by the end of the year? Rahul Gandhi slams the centre for missing its self-set vaccination target. A portion of a false ceiling at a mall collapses. 3 people are electrocuted. Traffic comes to a standstill as Chennai is flooded again as 21 centimeters rain pounds the city. That's 40% higher downpour in a single day than what is usual for December. The GST Council defers the implementation of the tax rate hike on textiles. The GST hike of 5% to 12% deferred, says the Finance Minister. West Bengal, Gujarat, Delhi, Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu had opposed the move. 5 ex-armed force chiefs write to the President and the Prime Minister on the Haridwar hate speeches. We cannot allow such incitement to violence together with public expressions of hate, the letter says. Will the government act? And Karnataka's latest instance of religious bigotry finds itself derailed. A group of women fend off right-wing extremist goons questioning their Christmas celebrations. Who are you to question us? These women challenge the Hindu fundamentalists and put them in their place. Who we pray to and what we wear is our prerogative, these women say. And it is exactly 2 years to the date since China announced the presence of the new coronavirus, later named COVID-19. And today, at the start of a new year, the Omicron variant has India on alert, with the government reporting 309 new cases of this variant alone today, the biggest single-day hike. In India, while cases are a fraction of the peak seen during the second wave, the rate at which the average daily cases is growing is now much more than it was at that horrific time. Take a look at your screen. The daily COVID-19 cases have jumped to double in the last 3 days. That's a faster jump than the fastest rate of increase recorded during the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, triggered off by that Delta variant. During the Delta-driven second wave, the fastest jump was in March. And in April, the Omicron tidal wave has surpassed that acceleration rate. Delhi and other major cities have announced major restrictions in view of the New Year's celebrations, banning gatherings in an attempt to rein in the matter. Delhi has banned gatherings for New Year's Eve. Maharashtra has imposed a 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. ban starting tonight. And amidst a rise in cases, there's a fear of an oncoming third wave, if not tamed in time. The All India R count for SARS-CoV-2 is already at 1.22. That's above that worrying 1 mark. The R value must be below 1 for active cases to start coming down. And Mumbai has reported 504 5,428 new cases. That's 48% more than yesterday. And 375 COVID samples collected in Mumbai were sent to the BMC genome sequencing lab. And 141 of them have been detected to be from the Omicron variant. More worryingly, none of these 141 cases have any history of travel, which means that Omicron is perhaps spreading now at the community level. And now more restrictions have been announced in Mumbai, including a lockdown post 5 p.m. So restaurants and taxi drivers are going to be ringing in the new year with huge losses to their wallets.
Mumbai's popular hotspots being emptied out at 5 p.m. as a ban on visitors started. The city is once again a top hotspot for the third time as the pandemic enters the third year. Since Monday, cases are doubling almost every day.
हम लोग राजस्थान से आए थे यही एंजॉय 31st न्यू ईयर एंजॉय करने के लिए, लेकिन हमें अभी आज दोपहर को ही पता चला कि डेडलाइन चालू हो गई है और क्राउड को सबको बाहर कर रहे हैं.
1200 किलोमीटर से आए हैं, वापस ऐसे लौटना पड़ेगा, तो थोड़ा सा अजीब सा लग रहा है.
Now, new data accessed by NDTV shows that 37% of COVID patients tested over 2 days last week have the Omicron variant. And more than 1 in 3 of the 375 tested at the BMC's genome sequencing lab at Kasturba Hospital. In fact, another worrying but useful revelation, 37% were locally infected. They had no recent travel history. Fresh restrictions have been announced to tackle the rise in cases. No gatherings or New Year celebrations will be allowed at beaches and promenades between 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. All programs, including marriages or any other public programs in open or closed spaces, cannot have more than 50 people. Funerals and last rites must be conducted with a maximum of 20 people in attendance.
पूरी तैयारी पुलिस प्रशासन ने की है. इसमें खास करके जो भीड़ का नियंत्रण हो पब्लिक प्लेसेस में, ट्रैफिक मॉनिटरिंग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रहता है और खास करके एंटी सबॉर्डिनेज मेजर्स जो घातपात से मुकाबला करने के लिए जो मेजर्स लिए जाते हैं उसका डिटेल में नियोजन किया गया है.
While there is confusion among restaurants, many businesses are looking at massive losses with plans going up in the air.
The industry, with the owners, the hotels, the chains, management had invested a considerable amount of capital and also brought in a lot of workforce and planned a lot of events so that they could garner some revenues and mitigate and cover up some of the losses and also give a good time to the people. But that seems to have now all gone down the drain.
Taxi drivers usually earn a lot, but this year, no such luck.
फिर से लॉकडाउन की शंका सुना है, इसकी वजह से धंधा पानी फिर से डाउन हो गया.
मैं सुबह से ऑनलाइन हुआ हूँ, एक भी ट्रिप नहीं मिला अभी तक.
The huge rise in COVID-19 cases in Mumbai amidst fears over the Omicron variant has led to fresh restrictions, which is why tourist hotspots like this one, Juhu Beach, is completely empty on the 31st of December, as no public gatherings and public celebrations are allowed on New Year's Eve. In Mumbai with camera person Sanjay Mandal, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
But political rallies continue, oblivious to the worrying surge in COVID cases across states. Our politicians, though, seem singularly focused on their political futures instead of the public's health and the public's welfare. Both the Home Minister and the Delhi Chief Minister held public events today in the poll-bound states of UP and Punjab, and these visuals are just terrifying. Huge crowds, people packed like sardines, absolutely no sign of any adherence to COVID norms. Clearly, these COVID norms are just for the common man, not for our netas, who think they're more equal than the rest. And all this at a time when the weekly cases are more than doubling in at least 11 states, and this includes the poll-bound states of Punjab and UP.
COVID safety protocols being flouted at political rallies in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh by the Delhi Chief Minister and the Union Home Minister, while cases in Delhi are at a 7-month high. Many people were seen without masks and little social distancing, two key steps that can stop cases from rising. Back in the capital, tension amongst crowd of people trying to get to work with tighter curbs on public transport imposed, without more buses and trains deployed.
कम से कम मिनिमम 1 घंटा, पौन घंटा, आधा घंटा तो लग ही रहा है एक बस पकड़ने के लिए।
हर रैली में पंजाब में देखिए, यूपी में देखिए, वहाँ गुजरात में देखिए, बिना मास्क लगाए ऐसे लग रहा है खाली मुंडी सिर दिख रहा है, इतना भीड़ इकट्ठा कर रहे हैं। क्या भीड़ में कोरोना नहीं जाता है?
Top sources in the health ministry indicate a possible community transmission of Omicron in the national capital, with 50% samples of COVID positive patients without a travel history showing presence of Omicron variant. Omicron doubling rate 2 to 3 days. 18% sample in India showing presence of Omicron in genome sequencing since 12th December.
I think the numbers clearly indicate that we are almost in the third wave. And seeing the way this Omicron strain or the present wave has behaved in various other parts of the world, there is no reason to behave that India is going to behave any differently.
Although Delhi has surpassed a new high alert marker with the positivity rate above 1%, there is no plan to impose tighter curbs yet. With Sanjay Kaushik and Pawan Tiwari, Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
And so in the end, the safest, most efficacious, the most practical way to protect yourself is to mask up.
Yet another challenge is in front of us. And like before, you and us will be equal to the challenge again. This time around, we may see a few more infections, but we have a good chance of riding out the storm if all of us follow basic, simple precautions like masking up whenever we have the opportunity to, avoid crowds, and please let us all get vaccinated.
I request everyone to raise your mask and please just remember those days of April 2021 where we have to suffer a lot and there were no beds available for you as well as for your relatives. So this is my kind request for everyone to just raise your mask and be responsible civilian.
There is good number of evidence and papers to suggest that widespread mask use would help to stem the epidemic and community transmission. Even non-medical masks have proven to be effective in reducing transmission of this virus, and places and time periods where mask usage has been widespread has shown a trend towards reduction in community transmission.
With the new variant coming which spreads very fast, you should be wearing mask wherever you go outside your home.
जैसे कि अपन दूसरी लहर से परिचित है कि कितने लोगों को अपन ने खोया है, तो मैं यही चाहती हूँ कि अब ये कंडीशन ना आए, इसलिए विशेष अनुरोध है कि सब लोग मास्क पहनें.
I plead before all Indians, and obviously everybody in the world is making the same appeal, that please put masks whenever you come out in the open.
Let's get you the other news now from around the country. 5 former chiefs of staff of the armed forces and over 100 other people, including veterans, bureaucrats and prominent citizens, have written to President Kovind and Prime Minister Narendra Modi regarding the open call to the genocide of Indian Muslims at various events, most recently in Uttarakhand's Haridwar and in Delhi. The letter also mentions the targeting of other minorities like Christians, Dalits and Sikhs. We are seriously perturbed by the contents of speeches made during a 3-day religious conclave where repeated calls for establishing a Hindu Rashtra and, if required, picking up weapons and killing of India's Muslims in the name of protecting Hinduism were made, the letter says. The letter calls this meeting seditious and called for the government to act to protect the integrity and security of India. And it's been a difficult start to the new year for residents of Chennai, which has been hit by yet another flood of rains. 3 people have been electrocuted. Traffic came to a standstill again as Chennai was flooded by 21 centimeters of rain that just pounded the city.
Chennai flooded yet again as 21 centimeter rain pounded the city on Thursday, triggered by a cyclonic circulation. That's 40% higher downpour in a single day than what's the usual 15 centimeter normal rain for December. Canopies at this Rajaratnam Stadium in Egmore went up in the air. A portion of a false ceiling at a mall collapsed. 3 people were electrocuted. Traffic came to a near standstill. Commuters were caught off guard as there was no forecast about this extremely heavy rainfall. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, who returned to Chennai from the Delta region, reviewed the situation around midnight and said there was no Met forecast at all. The Chennai Corporation deployed around 200 motors to pump waters out.
அதாவது 10 வருஷமா குட்டிச்சோராக்கி வச்சிருக்காங்க. அது ஏற்கனவே சொல்லியிருக்கோம். நான் அதெல்லாம் விமர்சனம் பண்ணதுக்கு தயாரா இல்லை. இப்போ இதை சால்வ் பண்ணணும். அடுத்த மழை சீசன் வரதுக்குள்ள நாங்க வந்து நிச்சயமா சால்வ் பண்ணணும் நம்பிக்கை இருக்கு. அதுக்கான ஏற்பாடு நடந்துட்டு இருக்கு.
Congress leader Rahul Gandhi reached out to the state battered by unexpected rains. With forecast of moderate rain, it could be a wet welcome to the new year. In Chennai, Sam Daniel, NDTV.
And in the big business news, the GST Council has deferred the implementation of the tax rate hike on textiles. The GST hike on textiles from 5% to 12% has been deferred, said the Finance Minister. West Bengal, Gujarat, Delhi, Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu governments had opposed the move. In the meeting, it was also decided not to extend today's deadline to file tax returns. Meanwhile, a tax raid on the Samajwadi Party leader and perfume maker Pushpa Jain in Uttar Pradesh's Kannauj on Friday has fueled a war of words between the ruling BJP and Akhilesh Yadav's party, centred on perfume barbs. The two parties have been targeting each other since the raids against Piyush Jain, another unrelated perfume businessman in Kannauj and Kanpur, that threw up eye-popping visuals of heaps of currency notes running into nearly 200 crores.
Today, a new chapter in the sensational seizures from a low-key UP businessman, which led to a slanging match between top BJP and SP leaders. Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav had alleged that this raid on Piyush Jain was a mistake and that the actual target was the SP's Pushpa Jain Pampi. Today, the centre conducted income tax raids on Pushpa Jain in his hometown Kannauj and 50 other locations in UP and Mumbai on charges of tax evasion. So far, the Income Tax Department has not said anything on what has been seized. Pushpraj or Pampi Jain was named by Home Minister Amit Shah at political rallies in the past week, and even the Prime Minister referred to him indirectly. Today, a fresh war of words.
इस समाजवादी हिंसा की दुर्गंध पूरे यूपी में फैल, आज जब रेडें चल रही है उनके पेट में उबाल हो रहा है।
जिस समय छापा कानपुर के इत्र व्यापारी पे पड़ा, पूरी भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने ये प्रचार किया कि ये पैसा उसका है जिसने समाजवादी इत्र बनाया है। जिस समय सच्चाई आने लगी और पोल खुलने लगी कि ये समाजवादी पार्टी से जुड़ा व्यक्ति नहीं है, अपनी खीस मिटाने के लिए इन्होंने दोबारा छापा मारा है पुष्पा जैन पर कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी से झूठ कोई नहीं बोल सकता। हिटलर के ज़माने में तो केवल एक विभाग था, एक मंत्री थे, प्रोपेगेंडा मिनिस्ट्री थी, लेकिन ये तो पूरी सरकार झूठ बोलती है।
The height of the wall is the height of the cash. ये इनका पार्टनर होंगे, इसीलिए शायद इतना पक्का बोल पा रहे हैं कि शायद ये बीजेपी का पैसा है। मैं बोल रही हूँ बीजेपी का पैसा नहीं है।
Kannauj is a historical town best known for its perfume trade. Some of the town's biggest traders live in narrow, congested bylanes like this one. The raids on the Samajwadi Party's Pampi Jain have added yet another dimension to an already massive Uttar Pradesh election. In Kannauj with Mohammad Israel, Kamal Khan and Vineet Verma, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
And time now for a special report, a crucial part of the evidence being collected by the special investigating team looking into the blotched up operation by the Special Forces of the Indian Army in Nagaland now is the testimony of an eyewitness, a villager, an ex-Jawan who was shot in the army firing. NDTV's Ratnadeep Chaudhary brings you his account.
One of the key witnesses in the Nagaland shootout in which Indian Army Special Forces soldiers shot dead 13 villagers in a botch operation is Chongmai Konyak. Chongmai himself is a former Indian Army Jawan. He has served the army for 15 years. Now he is in the hospital recovering from gunshot wounds. This is what he saw on that day.
फायरिंग कर दिया है, उसी फायरिंग के दौरान मेरा ऊपर गोली लगा है, मेरा बाएं पैर पे गोली लगा है, गोली लगते ही मैं नीचे गिर गया। तो हम तो क्या है, फौजी ट्रेन है, ऑलरेडी हमने भी स्पेशल कोर्स कर रखा है, इसका वजह से बच गया हो, हमने तुरंत ही अपना दाहिने तरफ नाली की तरफ हमने छलांग।
Chongmai Konyak is a crucial witness to what happened on December 4. He is one of the villagers who heard gunshots that were fired on innocent villagers when they were targeted wrongly and shot dead. The angry villagers soon surrounded the soldiers and then all hell broke loose. The soldiers fired in self-defense. Konyak says, apart from these soldiers, they might have been helped by other commandos who were in concealed position in the vicinity of the incident.
देख रहे हैं तो फायरिंग तो बिल्कुल ऊपर से आ रहा है, रोड में ये जो जहां स्पॉट में फायरिंग हुआ था वहां से नहीं, लेकिन इसके ऊपर वाला छोटी सी फायरिंग चल रहा है। जी वहां से जो पब्लिक अपना जो लड़का लोग भाग के गया है अपना जान बचाने के लिए, जो भाग के गया है उसको ऊपर फायरिंग हुआ है, वो डायरेक्टली मतलब एम्बुश वालों ने फायरिंग किया है। उनको पता है जो पब्लिक सिविलियन उधर ये फौज का सब तूतू में हो रहा है, नाइट विजन से देख रहा है। हमको तो ये बिल्कुल भनक ही नहीं लगा कि इस 10 बंदे का अलावा और फौजी है बोल के।
Chongmai Konyak is a vital witness to this case. Army sources tell us that they are looking into assertion that gunfire came from areas beyond the immediate site of the face-off. They tell us, any such allegations will also be brought under the ambit of the court of inquiry. NDTV also reached out to the Nagaland government with a set of queries. This report will be updated if there is a response. The Nagaland police, for its part, have told NDTV that they will be able to conclude from where the gunfire came based on statements of the eyewitnesses and the exhibits in the case, which are being used by the SIT to reconstruct the scene of the crime with an expert forensic team. With camera person Sanjay Chakravarti and Nakul Rabha, in Guwahati, Ratnadeep Chaudhary for NDTV.
And that's the news at this hour. That's the news for 2021 actually. And the new year is a time for reflection, a time for putting your best foot forward and perhaps also not to take yourself too seriously. So tonight we're going to leave you, actually before we leave you, we're going to take you behind the scenes of the NDTV team trying to put together a news bulletin for you.
3, 2, 1, hit it!
Into the gap.
मेरा भी सारे कॉम्प ऑफ जुट के काफी लंबी छुट्टी हो गई है मेरी अगले हफ्ते। एक्सक्यूज मी,
आपको लगता है कि हम वहाँ क्या मूंगफली खा रहे हैं ऊपर बैठ के? What does one say?
Okay, should I do a nacho nacho and this is not Kannada? Are you crazy? That would be like such an embarrassing thing to do. अबे ज्ञान पाड़ा।
यहाँ कपकपी लाग है।
Can you ask her if she can breathe it? Let's see how it goes.